You got this and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, Guapito. What's poppin', baby? How you feeling today?
2 days in a row.
Wow. 2 days in a row. What'd you do? Get Subway?
I came in late.
Oh yeah.
2 days in a row I came in late. I'm being insubordinate.
What are you doing?
I'm talking back to the boss.
What's going on with you recently?
Talking about how not everybody wants to scale, and I don't know, man. I think I need to be reined in. I think I'm like getting too big for my britches over here.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I just don't like it. I take a lot of pride in my work, and
maybe we should put you in that night suit.
You know,
we need to give you like.
You're saying you need to be humbled a little bit?
Yeah, just
all right.
We'll just submit it in the mock and we'll be fine.
Christ.
No, I mean, not to jump into this, but like,
not to take my opportunity.
No,
but
I've had that conversation further, like in our Discord chat and stuff, and I don't disagree with your point that it's like worth it to run a bot for some win rate. I think like the thing that went unstated was that you can't do this at like 500 NL plus. The pools are just too small, and like whatever you deem to be undetectable will eventually become detectable. So like you want to be able, like I kind of just jumped to the conclusion that this would happen in the mass pools of like 200 and below. And if you're talking about winning like 2 big blinds per 100 or whatever at 200 and below, it becomes less worth it when you can just do what the bot farms are doing now and just, you know, run it at mass. And when you get caught, stop. Start all over again. And you know what I mean? Like basically I wasn't refuting your point necessarily that there's no reason to run something with win rate. I was more so refuting Shamoth's point that these AI agents are going to sweep the internet and bring online poker to it. It's like, well, if bots aren't bringing online poker to its knees currently, and we know that they're taking a bunch of money out of the player pool, why would a low win rate AI that's like undetectable, you know what I mean? Like nobody gives a shit about the guy winning 2.5 big blinds per 100 in his pool. So it either has to happen at scale where there's a bunch of people doing it, or it just doesn't fucking matter and we'll just rather police the bots that are doing a better job for a larger win rate.
Maybe that's what he meant. Maybe he meant that once like the AI becomes so sophisticated that it will be much easier to do it, and then you'll have a lot more people. I don't know if that's the case, but
yeah,
maybe that was kind of what his point was.
I mean, I guess to that point, it would, like, should that be successful, it would crumble the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right? Because eventually they would outnumber.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. But I think that there are just like a lot of mechanisms for online to adapt to prevent that.
Yeah.
Things that they don't want to do now that would eventually become necessary, like KYC.
Yeah.
You know, like
you also don't have that many cheaters, I don't think, in the actual community, right? Like, you know, there are cheaters, obviously a lot, but like, well, if it became easier to cheat, would you have more? Probably yes, but probably not to that kind of scale. It's not like all of a sudden half the community is going to start cheating because it's easy.
It's how you define cheating, right? Like there was that podcast that was out
is by running an AI bot.
Sure, but that's because you've been a part of the industry for 20 years.
Yeah.
There was that podcast that wrote an AI script through ChatGPT and executed a regular bot on Ignition.
Yeah.
And they didn't think there was anything ethically wrong with that.
That's true.
Right? Like they wrote the script, they wrote the algo, they did all the things that make the bot function.
Right.
So in their minds, it's like, well, I created this thing that's just a better mousetrap.
Right.
Why would this be illegal or whatever? And they're not going to read terms of service.
You know, it's kind of funny because like they create these bots for, you know, for day trading.
Right.
Right. So it's literally kind of the same thing. You're playing, when you're day trading, you're playing a game against everyone else day trading. Right. And it's just like, because it's a zero sum game. Yeah. And it's just like, you know, so like if you come from that world and then you transition into like the poker world, you would probably see it the same way, and you wouldn't see it as cheating.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
I'm trying to find the parallels that make it obviously different, and I don't know
Brian's
that.
happy
I don't
with that
see
one.
one.
Well, I don't know that there's obviously different. Like I was thinking, like, oh, well, there's more of a luck factor to poker, so that makes it more obviously different. But there's still probably a fair amount of variance to day trading.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of insider trading and insider info, so it's very similar in the sense that there's bad actors. I think maybe the biggest difference is, and this is maybe more nuanced and subtle, is that technically poker is meant to be played between people.
Right.
Right. So like automating day trades, the second the computing power was available, that just seemed reasonable.
It was just
right.
a thing,
like,
and
yeah, much like
it was a thing, and it was accepted as well.
of course, because you're just entering parameters, right? It's like studying. If we can automate studying, nobody's going to be like, oh my God, he's a fucking cheater. He automates his studying.
Yeah.
Right. Very similar to also daily fantasy. If you can automate populating your lineups,
Right.
why wouldn't you?
Right.
It's just a big time save. So I think like along all those lines, that's where the difference comes from, is that poker is actually a competitive game. You wouldn't automate a basketball game.
Yeah.
Right. Like at the end of the day, LeBron has to play. Right. Otherwise it's no longer what we signed up to.
Right.
To
It's
watch.
funny about the daily fantasy, because I wonder if, I assume people are using AI
For sure.
It's
Oh,
funny.
yeah.
I was
To
just
set
having this
lineups
conversation
and-
yesterday because I don't know much about fantasy football, but I would assume there's like leagues where more points are given in like receiver leagues or in running back leagues. I'm sure if you put in all this data, maybe AI can spit out like a theoretical way of like picking players.
I mean, I don't know how much of it's AI, but I know that there are infinite algorithms. Like, I can't remember Bales' site.
Yeah. But you think the AI now could just
Fantasy
create
Labs?
the algorithm,
Fantasy Labs, yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh, maybe. It would be, you would have to have a way to rigorously test it.
Yeah.
That's the only challenge, I think. Because like, like for Fantasy Labs, they have lineup generators, and there are things that you can utilize to change, like how chalk you want it to be, how contrarian you want it to be, things like that. And they know what went into that algorithm.
Yeah.
If you just like, say you use like Chat GPT and gave a bunch of parameters of what you wanted to create the algo, you would need a way to rigorously test it to make sure that it was actually, because like there's so much error rate whenever you ask Chat GPT to do something. When it spits back something in English to us, we can browse through pretty quickly and be like, oh, well, that doesn't read correctly, or that actually isn't factually accurate, or things along. It's easy for us to test just simple language.
Yeah.
But when you start to get into coding, if you're not super sharp at that type of stuff, you're just going to gloss over magnitudes of errors.
Right, of course.
Where you might just be getting a lot of nonsense out. Again, it's just like anything else. Quality in equals quality out. Garbage in equals garbage out. But I mean, the conversation to me is interesting. I just felt like Chamath's statement was a little more doom and gloom for the wrong reasons. Like, I do think online is doom and gloom for many different reasons. And most of them are in that vein of it can be too easily cheated, and operators aren't, like, they're a little bit too handcuffed to do anything about it. But I don't know that we're to the point yet where removing the human element is the biggest concern.
Yeah. And I think like AI, there's still so many unknowns, right? Like we understand that probably in the next 5 years it's going to have a huge impact on society as a whole, but like in which direction and how does it impact us?
Right.
Is kind of still up in the air.
I will say to that end, it's hard to be super critical of Chamath, because the point that I largely did agree with was that AI will attack the lowest hanging fruit markets first. And something like poker qualifies.
Yeah.
Something like sports betting qualifies. Daily fantasy, all this stuff where there's a lot of, let's call it dumb money, for lack of a better term. Even the market, like that's kind of, I guess,
There's a lot of dumb money in the market, too.
Right. That's kind of the thing. Like, it's interesting to me that he chose poker as the example, and I know it's because he's a big advocate of poker. He's a big fan. And he's a budding amateur who's learning a lot about it. But it's very clear he has big gaps of knowledge. Even he's written some like GTO threads that are like pretty fucking far off. Like, there are some major points that are correct, but it's like very clear he has a gross misunderstanding of the nuance and the depth of it all. Why not just choose the market where he's a lot sharper? And the only thing I can think of is that his peers would be a lot more critical.
Maybe
Guys that are in finance that are really sharp about the market might be like, no, actually, I don't think AI will impact us that way or whatever.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I don't know what his. Go ahead.
Why would people want to build AI for poker when they can just go into bigger markets where it's actually no problem to do it?
I think that's fair, but I think with the point with the lowest hanging fruit markets is that
Less competitive.
Well, it's less competitive. You can smash and grab pretty easily, but also it's like just a good sandbox to try things.
Yeah. Like I think the sharpest minds in the world are already doing it in like the big markets, right?
Sure.
So it's just like now you're trying to compete with like, really, really sharp people with like huge computing power and these like AIs that they're building. So like,
yeah, I mean, the big thing is too, like if you get caught cheating online poker or whatever, what's going to happen? Your account's going to get banned.
Yeah.
If you get caught somehow fugazing the actual stock market, you might be looking at a bit of an indictment there.
A little bit of jail time.
Yeah.
Where do we get those laws?
Well, they have the SEC. We don't.
What do we have?
Nothing.
I guess we have
us.
We had the former Integrity Council.
We have Twitter.
For what it's worth,
mean,
AI
we
and
kinda-
bots wouldn't be cheating in the stock market.
That's true.
Well, they could though.
What?
If you're doing something to manipulate the market, then there's certain rules against certain things that you can do. and what you
Yeah, I
can't
mean,
do.
as this power,
If you start bending these rules or breaking these rules, then they're going to come after you.
right? As AI becomes more and more powerful, like think about the level of insider trader that takes place now. Imagine that you can create, undetectable AI that's capable of scraping that sort of information as well, right?
Or just communicating.
Or even just applying that information in an undetectable way.
Yeah.
Right. Like right now, the way the SEC, and I only know this from watching Billions, so I apologize for like any details I might fudge here a bit.
Quite honestly,
but,
that's the same place I get my
but
SEC
like,
information
it
from.
seems as though like the way the SEC polices this stuff now is to look for anomalies that don't align. Hedge funds outperforming traditional hedge fund returns and things like that, like at a grand scale. But if it can get to the individual level where people are able to take insider trading info and now do basically what we were implying could happen yesterday, where you have dozens or hundreds of individual accounts that are, for all intent and purposes, retail accounts, but are actually programmed AI with.
Gotcha.
And again, I'm leaping here. Like what I'm saying is as big of a leap as like what I think Shamat is saying about poker. But the larger point is I do think AI will have an impact in some capacity. My speculation is that it will come from making humans better first before it wipes us out. And
then all that's left is live poker.
Live poker
Your dream.
No, not my dream.
I know.
I like that online exists.
Online it
Keeps the
online.
lazy smart people away.
Yeah, and I mean, lazy smart people.
Yeah.
Guapo keeps Guapo out of my my 1-3 pool down.
Guapo's out of there. Landon's out of there.
Online's been going great, man.
Tell us more.
Won a lot of money playing online.
What's a lot?
What's there to say? I don't know.
You're playing cash. I
I
know you're playing
don't want to
tournaments.
reveal my
Finance
information.
thing.
Yeah.
I know you're playing tournaments. Are you playing cash as well?
Yeah.
A little mix of both.
Yeah.
What stakes?
The only thing that runs is
2.5 is the
2.5.
highest that really goes.
2.5?
like 5 ton will run, but sometimes
I feel like you would do really
it's
well.
mostly heads up, and then they leave.
Yeah.
So
Well, they can't play
2.5.
once you have all their money.
they won't give me any money.
What's your name on there?
Action dealer?
Oh, you
Oh,
kept
you're
it.
still action dealer?
I didn't change it.
Interesting.
They know who I am.
They know where to find me.
They know where to find me.
Or you
I don't know.
appreciate.
Poker's weird, man. Like, I think, like, when it comes to where I'm at now, like, making, call it reasonable, like, 5 figures plus a month, I would have never thought that was possible. Or, like, at this point, I would have thought, like, I made it, you know? Like, it's weird to go from, like, playing 2 cent, 4 cent on stake
Right.
to now, like, making
Do you think
decent amount of
it's
money playing online.
sustainable to make like 10K a month on WSOP?
For sure. For
Really?
now. Yeah.
Really?
Playing 2-5 and 1-2. You just grind.
Got that Michigan money in there now.
Play tournaments on Sundays also. I think you have to do both, though.
Do you like the new schedule?
It's small, but I do. But I like the schedule because it's like good training for higher stake stuff as well. Like it's just fast structures, and then you can like learn. You finish a schedule in a day, and then I also just like look at stuff after the fact. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy it, but it is kind of small. But just because I would rather play that than leave my house.
Right.
Your house.
Right. Well, I mean, to be fair, a lot of the stuff that you would leave the house for is also relatively small. I think there's like a 1K, 500K guarantee at the win.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah, it's small, but like, you know, that's going to be 180, 200K up top.
But Sundays are kind of popping.
Sundays are still, well, it depends.
You're not playing for those prize pools online.
Like Sunday last week was really good because it was a circuit main, and then like ACR had a bigger series going on. So yeah, had a good amount of volume to like win many dollars, but most Sundays like you're just gonna spend a lot of money and lose.
Right.
And then I make all that money back playing cash.
Sure.
What about live?
Until you spike one.
What about live cash? You ever
It sounds nice, but
Yeah.
I actually have to go do that.
You do. You have to go.
Imagine
like the AI bots can't take away live poker.
they cannot. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe
You might be
when the
forced to go.
singularity happens.
Make like altered carbon with like AI agents, and then they're gonna go sit and play 2-5.
At that point, what are we doing? You know, what are we even doing? At the end of the day, we created this game to distract ourselves from the real world.
Right.
You know, like,
Yeah, you can't.
what are we
bring
doing?
fake-
Just employing an army of fucking bots to go do it for us. Like, have them dig the ditches, man. You know, we don't need them fucking running a 3-barrel.
Right.
They have better things to do with their time.
Yeah, yeah. There's much.
Are they gonna be like implemented with like human emotion? So like someone like calls them down with like a minus EV catcher, and they're just like, "What the fuck we doing?"
No, that's why they're AI.
Mm-hmm.
They're just emotionless.
I mean, I think that's the expectation is that they won't have emotions, so they'll see us the way that we see ants.
Right, but if that's the case, then you can pick them out of the pool, and then you can get them out.
Maybe.
But if they had human emotion, it'd be harder.
Well, if they have human
whale.
emotions, then we're gonna end up fucking them,
Relax.
right? Like,
Go,
did you ever see the
Grandpa.
movie Her?
No,
Okay, well, you know, you might just fall in love with an AI.
I don't want to.
What if it had Scarlett Johansson's voice?
What if it has
We're in talks.
blue hair?
Yeah. What
Blue-
if
What if
big
it had
titty
Scarlett
anime girl?
Johansson's other features?
I didn't want to say.
It feels like the world's going that way, huh?
Blue-haired anime
There's
girl.
like a lot. There's like a lot of like stuff now where it's like e-girlfriends.
Honestly, like it's very sick
we're all
and twisted.
fucked. We're all-
Well, it's like very sick and twisted, but like one of
Well,
Look-
we're not because
look,
we're
the
talking about
oldest
e-girlfriends.
profession is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a reason that it lasted that long. So understanding that like one of the greatest markets to tap into is men's loneliness, and finding ways to just not just separate them from their money, but actually long term promote that loneliness even further is scary, man.
Yeah.
It's scary to think that like there's a marketplace forming that is solely intended to create an entire generation of incels.
Hey,
Have you seen?
for you,
have you
Burke.
seen Ex
More for you.
Machina?
Not me, man. Huh?
Have you seen Ex Machina?
So it's funny. I've heard this movie pronounced like 20 different ways. No, I've never seen it.
It's very good. It's
what-
exactly
I thought it was
how
Machina.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Who's the lead in that? She's somewhat famous.
she's very
I thought.
pretty. I can't think of her name,
Yeah,
but it's very good.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, this is like kind of the Andrew Tate blueprint, right? Like he just realized dudes are super lonely, so he started running these call centers with like, you know, OnlyFans girls and phone sex operators and stuff like that, and like they weren't efficient enough at separating the money.
So he started typing.
Yeah, like
It's actually pretty smart.
it's smart, but it's like it's bottom of the barrel, like disgusting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's so morally reprehensible.
Yeah.
Where it's like, actually, I know exactly how a horny dude's mind thinks. So let me get in there and start typing this out while you just like smile at the camera.
Wait,
It's
this
like
is
the
real
meme,
life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
someone.
this is like how he built his wealth, bro.
Jesus.
He had like a stable of girls, you know, they were like foreign women or whatever, and they would get on webcam and he would be the one typing, sexting with the dude on the other side. like under the desk. Guys
Secure
are
the
fucking
bag.
sociopaths.
How does he have such a big following?
Because there's a lot of dudes that like
What color is your
celebrate
Bugatti?
that. Like there's just like a lot of dudes that celebrate what he represents. Like he represents, he's the Dan Bilzerian of like another adjacent world. But like, you know, in some like weird twisted fairy tale way, the guy who like has the girl, has the car, and talks like a, you know, complete asshole is somehow relished by the guy that could like never possibly see himself in that position.
We have a really big meeting this Sunday.
With who's
That was my joke. Sorry.
Oh no.
I was implying that I was going to a meeting on Sunday.
Are you the leader of the Tate group or the group that follows?
I'm done.
Bro's cooked. Oh man. All right. Speaking of cooked, no sympathy for this man.
No.
Apparently, while Men was out here, you know, trying to collect some chips for the WSOP, pun intended, his nephew was busy robbing his house. I believe it was back in the Philippines.
Vietnam.
Let's see, Vietnam. Sorry, my apologies. So it looks as though the nephew of 7-time World Series bracelet winner Men the Master. Can we get the master part out of his name?
He has
Like,
7 bracelets?
at some point, like he's not the master.
He is the
anymore.
master.
I mean, he's the master of something.
I was going to say that.
So his nephew was charged with. He was arrested and charged. Imagine like not being able to handle this either, and being like, "That's it, you're under arrest." Like this is your fucking nephew. Figure it out.
It's like you arresting Eric.
He stole over $60,000 in cash and valuables from Nen's home in Vietnam, according to the Vietnam news report. I'm not going to try. He was arrested Sunday and charged with breaking into a room.
Ew.
Yeah, see, not going to try. He opened Men's safe in the bedroom, stealing 250 million Vietnam dollars, which is about $8,000 in U.S. cash. Wow, hyperinflation's real. Along with valuables that include 3 Rolex watches.
All right.
Wow, they recovered everything, it looks. Or it would appear. Anyway, there's a picture down
Is that
there.
a saber tooth?
It's not a saber tooth. I'm confident of that, but it is something.
What the fuck is that?
Man, it's so interesting to me because like Men is so hateable for so many reasons, but also like there's the aspect of what the fuck did he have to go through to get to this point? You know what I mean? Like I assume he's like some sort of Vietnam refugee, similar to a story of like Scotty Wynn, where they escaped this, you know, treacherous place to live out the American dream. And sure, he cheated for 2 decades in order to accrue some wealth.
But who didn't?
But yeah, different times, you know. This is back when they carried revolvers and shit.
Is this a time heals all wounds?
I don't think so
situation?
because he's still doing it.
Yeah, it's true.
but-
If it had stopped like at the turn of the century, then maybe, you know, 24
I actually
years
just
later.
watched this really short documentary on Archie Karras.
Oh yeah. D-Gen.
Apparently, yeah, he's been caught like 4 or 5 times marking cards.
I mean,
and,
that
like,
makes sense. Like, how do you ever come back from running up nothing to 40 million and then back down to 0?
Well, it makes me wonder
Crazy.
if the 40 million that he ran up was legit.
Yeah, I mean, it was different times, right? Like, that was back in the late 60s, early 70s, I think. Benny Binion was pretty much just like back then you
He
knew
was just taking all the action.
I mean, think about it. Like, it was so early that back then, high rollers like Archie Karras knew Benny Binion and Jack Binion like personally.
Right.
You know what I mean? He had a personal relationship with the owner of the casino.
Let me ask you a question. What is 40 million then now?
A lot.
Oh my
Like,
god.
how many billions?
No,
Not
nothing like that. But
Billion?
like maybe it might be worth like 3x now.
at least.
If I had to guess.
I would say even maybe higher.
Maybe
than- 'cause
more?
We're talking about the late 70s, right?
Yeah.
Early 70s.
Imagine having that money then, how much you could have made it at that time.
Imagine losing it in 2
the
weeks.
guy who ran 40 million to 0 in 2 weeks,
2 weeks
could
it was
never have
gone.
turned it into anything other than 0.
Right.
My
Right.
God.
Like that's just
It
the
doesn't
thing.
matter how high it went. It
Does
would
not
always,
matter.
Yeah. The risk
Always.
of ruin was 100%.
Always 100. Because like honestly, like he might be the original case study of what Gambler's Ruin was. Like some mathematician watched Archie Karras and was like, hang on a second. I think I can calculate the likelihood of this having happened. Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. It was actually definitely always going to happen.
Right. Because there's just like you said, if you
just never de-risk.
If you have it in you to run 40 million to zero, then you just don't have a stop. Like, it doesn't matter how high it gets, you're just going to play higher and higher and higher with an edge against you, and then it's all gone.
Yeah. Someone in the chat said that Google says it's worth about 8x now.
There you go. That sounds right.
Yeah, so $250 million? It's a $250 million?
More.
Good God.
$3 billion.
No, 240K, right?
240
Oh, no,
million.
320. You're right. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
We're both dumb.
What was the number?
Just say it. We're both dumb.
It was 40 times 8. 320.
40 times 8. We're dumb. We're both dumb. Brian's smart.
I was thinking of
Give the man his dues.
I was thinking of
Don't
a different
do
number.
math on air, Conrad.
I can do simple.
I was thinking of a different number. What do you want?
Simple multiplication. I can do third grade math, guys, and you can't.
We cannot.
That's worth a lot these days.
Oh man. Well, while we're on the subject of people getting arrested for theft.
Yep.
There's a big story that broke yesterday. You know, it's kind of. Is it unfortunate that poker gets lumped into this?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Once again, it's part of the underworld, seedy gambler, right?
I hate that the articles and everything are painting him as professional poker player does something bad.
Just because
right?
he's played poker one time.
His
The majority of his income probably is not coming from
right.
poker.
That's not.
Oh,
what,
no,
that's
no,
not
no. What do you mean,
defines
Conrad? Sorry, Guapo. He ran a $150 million illegal book. You don't think he was making more than that playing limit fucking hold'em?
Yeah, that's a good strong point.
Sylvia's doing it.
That's true. Yeah. So, all right. To give you guys the backstory, the headline is professional poker player Damien Leforbes just pled guilty to running an illegal sports betting operation and money laundering operation, gambling $148 million at Las Vegas casinos over an 11-month period.
That's a strong number.
That's a strong number.
That is absurd.
So the backstory to this is DJ, as I know him, has been in the high stakes world for the better part of a decade. He plays all the games. I think his favorite game was Big O, if I'm not mistaken, or it was something along the line. It was one of the mixed games. Likes to gamble. I've had my fair share of getting to play with him, mostly in like JRB run games that are much larger.
He played on high stakes poker.
He did play on high stakes poker. He used to play with us in Ivy's room back when it was 3-6-12. And yeah, he's just always been a good action player. Would never in a million years qualify him as a pro. I can't fathom that he even seriously qualifies himself as a pro, but maybe I guess it doesn't take anything other than belief in this particular arena. You don't get a card.
Yeah,
you know, you're not a card-carrying member of the Professional Poker Player Academy.
I'm a poker player. Here's my pro card.
Right.
I mean, it's actually just like an easy out to say you do something that's not running a sports betting.
Well, not only that, but you know, look, for better or for worse, poker is an all-cash business. So when you are somebody like this, who it appears as though the backstory to this was that he was the middleman for the gambling ring that Ohtani's interpreter was a part of.
Yeah.
Kind of sick.
So it seems as though he was running numbers for that collective group. Maybe he was getting action down. Maybe he was, cleaning some money, if you will, playing a lot of high stakes poker. They listed his Casino A in the article. Everybody's kind of speculating that was Resorts. That was like mostly his place of business, I think, over the last year.
They said he lost. How much did he lose? 30 million or
148 million total. But
he ran 148 million through.
He racked up over 12 million in gambling losses at Resorts World.
There it is, 12 million at Resorts World, which is interesting that Resorts World is mentioned there, but not in the maybe because one's the case and the other is just public knowledge or something.
And this seems to only be like less. This is less than 10%. Yes, we all saw the comment, Conrad. Like.
I didn't see it.
Your timing, man.
I wasn't going to say it.
Yeah, but you had to laugh loud enough so we acknowledge you.
Laugh. Just leave me alone.
Said, Robbie is on a reality TV show as a poker player, a professional poker player, where she's solely famous for a single hand that was either cheated or the worst played hand in history.
Yeah.
You don't need to prove it.
Right, yeah. I did see that she's going to be on a reality show, and I might have to watch it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But, yeah, so...
I'm here for it.
I guess, yeah, he lost... So he lost 12 million in a single year.
It looks like well, it doesn't. It doesn't.
And
give
then
it doesn't give
Casino
a time
A,
frame.
which we think might be Resorts World, he ran $148 million through, which sounds like a lot, which it is, but like it's also like I think it's people can think like, oh man, he lost 148 million there, which that's not what happened, or like he made $140 million bet, which that's also
neither of those things are what happened.
Right.
So the article goes on to explain that he was largely doing like cryptocurrency transfers for chips and vice versa. So he was just basically moving a lot of money back and forth.
Wait, I thought the cryptocurrency transfers were through his illegal betting.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm saying it was happening on the casino grounds.
Like,
so he was like taking resort or casino A
A's chips, yeah,
in exchange for these transfers and vice versa.
Gotcha.
So it seems as though like basically he was utilizing casinos as a place.
Just leave that up the whole time, Papa.
It seems like he was using these casinos and large high stakes games as a place of business. And like we all know this to be true because, or at least we have a fair understanding of how this works because there's been a big crackdown in Vegas amongst like the high stakes scene where they're overseeing a lot of these gaming environments now, ensuring that there's nothing illegal taking place. And this gets tricky because I loan a lot in game, and there isn't like really a great way to go about doing that, right? Like there's a lot of instances where like I just give chips with nothing in return. And then eventually I get paid back.
It's
but
like a handshake deal kind of.
Yeah. And I think it's okay when you do it in game, I guess. But it's like, this is necessary to keep the ecosystem alive. Like when you have an out of town player come in, like, I'm not going to name names, but like when you have like action players come in and they don't bring money, like I this happens to me all the time. Like I go to LA and I don't have enough funds. Like you just have to borrow type of thing. I don't know. I don't know what the proper protocol is because there's nothing illegal about loaning money, obviously.
Right.
But there may be some sort of stipulations on loaning chips, right? Because like technically I think they might be considered a commodity. I'm not sure. I really don't know how all of this falls. Maybe. But like you purchase them.
Yeah.
But then are they yours once you do? Kind of thing, I don't really know.
I feel like the casino just always owns them,
right?
But you can always cash them in,
right?
I don't know how. I'd have to dig into the.
Yeah, it's tough to say. It's tough to say, but the point is that there's a lot of this that takes place that's on the up and up. That is not like attempting to launder money or do anything shady. It's just like keeping people in action and loaning on the finger for somebody that is vouched or is good for it in some sort of capacity.
But in this case, illegal casino for bets.
Well, I think in this case it's because
chips.
it traces back to something else.
Right.
It ultimately traces back to book action that is effectively being operated illegally in a state where you require a gaming license in order to be a bookie. So I think that's what he's getting pinched on, if I had to guess.
What are the punishments for this?
15 years in jail is what he's looking at. And I think that's like a plea deal. I think it could have been a lot worse.
Wow. You don't mess with Vegas
so he is
money.
going to do 15?
Or that's what's on the table? I think that's what the article said. Let me get to the bottom of this. He pled guilty in a California court to operating an illegal sports betting operation 3 weeks ago. According to his plea agreement, okay, so I got that right. Boyer operated an unlicensed and illegal bookmaking business that focused on sports betting and violated a California law that prohibited sports betting or sports bookmaking. Leforbes has been connected to Bauer as the two were under investigation at the same time and both allegedly racked up gambling losses at Resorts World. Oh wait, is Bauer is that Ohtani's whatchamacallit? Interpreter?
Yes.
Interpreter?
That's Ipe.
Okay.
Right? Or
Wait, no.
Go back to the article.
Bauer's another
No,
guy.
it's not. No, his Ipe Mizrahi.
Yeah, let's.
Right, which all of this is commingled. Okay, here it is. The second paragraph. Leforbes is alleged to have been one of the co-conspirators in the illegal gambling ring involving Matt Bauer and Shohei Ohtani's former interpreter, Ipe Mizuhara. Bauer allegedly accepted millions of dollars in bets from Mizuhara. So, yeah, it seems like he was running numbers for Bauer, who was then taking the bets from Izuhara. I think that's the way I understand it.
Yeah, like Boyer, whatever his name is, working with Damien to get these bets down.
It seems that way, yeah, in some sort of capacity. It must not be in this article, but I saw somewhere that he was being sentenced to 15 years. Maybe it was a different article.
Well, I think you'd just be looking at 15 years. Like not.
Maybe we can get Damien to call in.
Let me look.
Yeah, maybe
From where?
It sounds more like he was facing 15 years and he decided to plead guilty for a lesser charge.
Yeah.
That would make the most sense. But
I'm looking.
I don't know for sure.
Poker player pleads.
This is worse than
guilty.
math on air, man.
It
True.
is.
All right, he will face up to 15 years in prison.
Up to. Okay.
Okay, so he hasn't been sentenced yet.
No, he hasn't been sentenced yet.
Right.
Up to 3 years on supervised release and a $500K fine.
That's probably more likely that he gets a slap on the wrist.
500K fine doesn't sound like much.
Yeah, but remember, he's going to face the least amount of charges, I would assume, out of everybody in this operation.
Because he pled guilty and probably it's
He
cooperating.
plead, it seems like there's a plea deal between him, Bower, and then Mizuhara. Like they all plead in some sort of capacity, but I assume it was to I assume it's prisoner's dilemma, right? Like
Right.
they're all in some sort of capacity, like ratting each other out.
Is it? It's illegal for Mizuhara to place bets as well. Like how does this? You know what I mean? Like what? The illegal part is like the sports book.
Are you asking like could he have bet like legally in Vegas?
Yeah.
I would assume so.
Maybe
I think
just
the
not-
MLB would have frowned upon it,
Yeah.
Not as
but
much
that's not
money.
a criminal case. I don't
But
think.
this is like gambling in a way that you're not allowed to.
Usually it's the book that they come after. They don't come after the actual bettors.
Yeah, I
right?
don't even
Like,
think-
so
Right, but in this instance, because it's so high profile,
That's
and because
And he's
it-
working with somebody that plays in the MLB.
yeah, and it potentially seemed to have had insider information.
Like
Like
point
they bet a
shaving
lot
stuff.
on like specifically, what's his face,
Angels?
Ohtani's
Oh, yeah.
Ohtani
It
outcomes.
was based off like Shohei numbers.
Yeah, it was a
That
lot.
seems a bit different.
I'm not quite sure. I don't think he's getting arrested for gambling. Like I think he,
Mizuhara? Or-
yes.
Yeah,
Like,
I think you're right.
If anything, they're trying to link it to Ohtani,
Right.
or he's doing something else. He was washing money or something along those lines for these guys. There's something else along the lines of why he got arrested.
It doesn't look good when you're working with somebody that can get bets down on yourself to like not perform.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
probably what's going on here.
But yeah,
more than anything
I
else.
think Brian's right. I imagine that like the string of events is that Mizuhara is actually the one who is working with the government and everybody else to bring down the operation of Boyer and or Bower. Boyer?
Bower.
Bower?
Well, I mean,
Boyer?
it didn't. I think they would all just be in cooperation at this point because it doesn't matter. After that article came out or whatever the case may be, that put what's one call it the interpreter under the light. It's just everybody crumbles at that point.
Right, but okay, so right, but I think that exposing Boyer's operation is ultimately what the government was probably after.
Yeah.
Right? Because it says Boyer allegedly operated allegedly operated an illegal sportsbook in California for 5 years until October of 2023. He had more than 700 bettors working beneath him.
Jesus Christ.
So I would imagine that
Sick.
this just becomes a matter of like throwing the book at him and then a cascading effect for everybody who worked beneath him,
Yeah.
getting some sort of slap on the wrist or probation or whatever.
I would like to see what happens with the interpreter because there's definitely more.
Well, I
than
think
just
he's already
gambling.
been punished, right? Didn't they deport him?
I'm not sure.
I thought that was like almost instantaneous. Like I thought that's how Ohtani got cleared, was that Mizuhara took all the fall. I believe he was. I want to say that he was. I want to say that like whatever his punishment was, it came with a very, very hefty number.
Okay, so yeah, he did plead guilty. He pled guilty to bank and tax fraud charges during a change of plea hearing. Let's see, in June, looks like June. His sentencing is set for October 25th, and he could be facing 33 years.
Wow. Yeah, bank fraud's obviously a totally different.
Yeah.
I wonder what.
You don't want
I
to
wonder what
that.
about all of this. Oh! I know what it is. It's because he's accused of stealing Ohtani's money to gamble with.
Yeah.
I forgot about that aspect of it. I was trying to think of how Ohtani was linked to this.
Right.
And I completely looked over the fact that Mizuhara pled guilty to actually having access to Ohtani's funds illegally. So that becomes like bank and wire fraud, which now becomes a much, much more serious crime.
Right.
A lot going on here.
A lot going on here.
I'm curious.
Scary
if
shit.
That was a threshold for Ohtani not having to press charges and just the courts coming after him.
Well, I mean, we could speculate all day, but I would presume at a bare minimum, this is like the cleanest way for Ohtani to be completely removed from this case, which I think everybody wants to have happen, even if he's guilty. I think the MLB wants his name out of this ASAP.
Sure.
I think that even Mizuhara, who's maybe looking at like a third of the rest of his life in jail, wants
The
Ohtani's
entire
name.
city of Los Angeles.
Yeah, all of Los Angeles, the entire fucking nation of Japan.
Yeah,
like they all want Ohtani to be cleared, and even like Mizuhara, who may face some jail time out of this, almost certainly wants that to be the case because he'll be taken care of for life.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Ohtani's looking at becoming $1 billion athlete, and putting him away for white collar crime seems like a crime. You know,
He's going to be the first 50-50. Very close. Very good chance he's going to be the first 50-50 player in MLB history.
What,
is
50
he still
home?
50 bases?
He's already over 40. He's over
Really?
40. He's already at 40-40.
Wait, I thought Bonds never did 50-50?
No.
He did 40-50 for sure.
He probably did, I'm sure.
Mizuhara got to bet down on this.
What's the club that only Bonds, Canseco, and
40-40.
Mays are a part of?
Oh,
I don't think it's the 40-40.
I thought it was. I know Bonds definitely did a 30-50 before. I don't know if he's ever done 40-50.
I mean, it wouldn't matter because
But I know that
that's not a thing.
50-50 has never been done, and Ohtani's on pace.
They might be in the 500-500 club. Those three that I just mentioned.
500 stolen bases, 500 home runs.
Yeah,
That sounds right.
yeah. But yeah, you're probably right. When Bonds started hitting over 40, or more importantly, over 50, he wasn't running anymore.
Right.
Stats on
exactly.
there.
Bigger boy.
Exactly.
Much bigger boy at that point.
But just that's insane.
There's not that many people that have gone 40-40.
Oh, okay. Maybe that was the club I was thinking
Yeah,
of.
so Acuna,
Oh, that's new.
that plays for the Braves.
Yeah. He's a stud.
Alfonso Soriano,
Also newish. Well, last 15 years.
probably happened in like 2006.
Okay. Yeah, last 15
A-Rod,
years.
Bonds, and Canseco.
Okay. I thought Willie Mays was in there, but I guess not. What's look up the 500-500 club. I think it's just no. Canseco's not in the 500.
I was gonna say
he didn't hit 500 home runs.
No, I don't think he did.
Maybe it's just Bonds. It might just be Bonds.
Might just be Bonds.
I think Mays is in there though. No, Mays has to be. He had over 600 home runs.
But did he have 500 stolen bases?
I would think
I don't know.
All right, so
he played center field till the day he fucking retired.
it might only be Bonds because he created it 15 years ago.
Oh, then
they
yeah,
said.
it's definitely only Bonds.
Yeah.
The other guys aren't old enough, and Soriano didn't play long enough.
Yeah.
I don't think.
500 stolen bases is a lot. Those
500 home runs is a lot.
Yeah.
Man, 500 home runs used to be
You're
like
figuring out on air why it's a 1 of 1.
500 home runs used to be like a lock to get into the Hall of Fame. Like
Still is, right?
no, it's not. McGuire's out, Sosa's out, Bonds is out.
no,
Well, we're
yeah,
talking about
no,
fucking
that's-
steroids in your
Yeah,
ass.
exactly. That's why they're out. They're not out because they're only keeping them out because of the steroid controversy. But
All right. Well, whenever they fucking put that little shit from the Astros, when they put fucking Altuve in the Hall,
they will.
and you
too.
try to tell
No,
me
they
this
won't.
5'1" motherfucker who hits 550 bombs in his career isn't on the juice?
He's not on the.
Fuck
He
you.
cheats in other ways.
You know,
He's banging garbage cans.
You know who's on his way though, right?
Who?
My boy Judds.
I mean, he's a monster.
He's gonna-
308 home runs
He's gonna
for
hit
his
60
career.
again this year. He's got over 50 home runs already.
Yeah.
I think he has 52.
You can make a case
And he's
to me.
batting like 350.
Look,
a
you
fucking
can make
animal.
a case to me that Judge isn't on the juice now, but I promise you, at some point in that kid's childhood, between age 5 and age 15, they were shooting him up with something fucking special.
So he has 51 home runs and he is 122 RBIs, batting 333.
He's a monster.
It's August.
Do you know how fast?
Insane, dude.
Like his rise
turtle
was
can't
so,
take it.
his rise was so fast.
It's
Like
really
people
wasn't.
forgot that they even had Giancarlo
Stanton?
Stanton, yeah.
It really wasn't though. He came in the league in 2016.
Yeah,
where he
but by
played,
like
half a
18
quarter of a year.
by like 18, people forgot that Stanton was even in the fucking lineup, and Judge is just dropping 30 a year
Yeah.
from the leadoff spot. You know?
Judge is
Yeah.
working with Subway so
I'm not-
quick.
I'm actually not sure when Judge was called up, but
Stanton also had some injuries, and,
Maybe-
and Stanton wasn't hitting like 330 either. Like he's hitting like 250, which is like a big difference.
Yeah, 250 and 55 home runs. That's nice.
I don't know if Stanton's ever hit 55 home runs. I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, I think that was the
40 a lot.
I think that was the
sure.
expectation whenever they
Yeah.
went out and got him.
all I know is Stanton's hitting home runs right now, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still like, I don't want to say he's young, but like, he's not
Who, Stanton?
40. Yeah.
We definitely overpaid for him.
Well, yeah, that's the Yankee way, bro.
I mean, he just got injured a lot.
Yeah,
and,
that's the Yankee. I can't
it's
believe they didn't
so
get fucking
upsetting.
Pujols on the
Yeah.
downside of his career.
I mean,
The Yankees and the Angels are like notorious for getting like aging talent.
I'm glad that we win and we're not the Angels.
I don't know if you've checked, but the last World Series has not been recent.
All right, whatever. Talk to me in 6 months, 3 months.
Jeter
whatever.
was still on the team. Is that right?
No, are you fucking
You guys
crazy?
won since Jeter?
Are you out of your mind?
Have they won since Jeter?
I don't know.
Yes.
2000 and when's the last one they won? 2002?
No.
I think Jeter was still on the team.
Man, I don't know.
They didn't win the A-Rod years
It's
for
not
sure.
it's not a good look.
2009.
2009.
All right, so Jeter's last year?
Was it?
He had to been done.
No.
I don't
think
know,
so.
man.
I think Jeter was gone.
I don't know.
2009.
Who the fuck was on the 09 Yankees?
They definitely didn't win his last year. They didn't win the World Series his last year.
All right, let's.
I know
say,
that.
Let's
It's
see.
funny. I watched
Remember he hit a walk-off?
Oh, this is Jabba Chamberlain year.
Yeah.
the captain.
It
I
was-
don't remember.
Jeter was on the roster.
Yeah, you're fucking right. He was.
Okay, well then
Cano.
Jeter played another year.
I don't
because-
care if he played after that. The last World Series they won, Jeter was on
on
the
the
fucking team.
Yeah.
A-Rod, Teixeira, Barrera,
Teixeira.
Johnny, whatever.
Texeric.
Damon.
Tuxedo. Texas Eric at first base. Pulling up the fucking rear.
Wes Gardner.
Texas
Man.
Eric.
CC Sabathia. What a fucking team that
Yeah,
was.
what a team. That was fucking 20 years ago. Grow up.
What a team that
15.
was. Listen,
You want to talk about the 70s Pirates and
I was
We
going
Are
to say,
Family?
like, yeah, we don't want to talk about the last time the Pirates won.
listen,
it's
we've
been a
plagued-
fucking
None of us
We've
were
been
alive.
plagued by
Not even
injury
Guapo.
and bad pitching choices.
Actually, Guapo might have been alive.
Are you going to talk plagued by it? You guys spend $1 billion fucking dollars
Plagued by
every year.
And nobody can fucking overcome injury.
So buy someone else at the deadline, bro.
Need more bats.
Yeah, we're 3 bats away. Tell them, man.
Dude, have you seen Cruz's numbers lately? They're
Cruz looks good.
They're actually very similar to Reynolds. I was looking at them. I'm like, that's. I didn't realize. I knew he was having a good season, but I didn't think it was like close to Reynolds.
Reynolds' average fell off the second half. His power number stayed up.
No, the opposite. The opposite. He's been hitting, but not home runs.
I saw his average dip. But he
I mean,
was
hit
like
one today. Hit a home run today.
Sure,
but
but he was like closer to 300 coming in. Not into the break, but like late.
maybe.
Yeah,
He's
he's
well,
like 280ish now.
Yeah, I mean at his peak for sure. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
He's
Like his average dip.
He's
but
like
his power number
280.
is still good.
Cruz is like 270. Their OPS is almost exactly the same, and their home runs are like a couple.
Well,
off
you
from
know
each
they're
other.
both
So
naturally
someone's
center
going to
fielders.
jail.
Someone's definitely going to jail.
More importantly, Jets season is coming up.
Shut the fuck up.
You know what I mean?
Well,
This
thanks
is
for
where-
joining us, everybody.
This is where our man Aaron Rodgers leads
Aaron
us.
Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
leads us to a Super Bowl victory.
There's no way
Texas
that man's
Eric be
staying
there
healthy
too?
for a whole season.
It's just gonna be another body bag on the field.
Right.
Like, this guy might die week
Right.
1 again.
Yo, relax. relax. It was
him
a
and
freak
Russell Wilson
accident.
will be drinking beer at a bar
they'll be
halfway
fucking,
through the season.
They'll be fucking cooking ayahuasca somewhere on the
Yeah, they did
sidelines
drugs
together.
with MGK.
Yeah.
They're cool now.
Right, yeah, they're super dope, bro.
Big year.
All right, let's move on from the darker side of poker and get a little bit. This is a little adjacent to the conversation we had yesterday. A little bit of an overflow from the day before as well. Jason Kuhn last week put out a tweet, seemingly unprompted. So here's the thing: when Jason tweets, it's about something that's going on. But he doesn't. He's not on the Twitter that often. So like, I think he's responding to something that he's seeing in his timeline that maybe we're not all seeing. So I'm not sure what the context of this tweet was.
Or it's like a flashback story,
Right.
or he's like back home in some.
That's different because then we know the context. I don't know the context of this tweet, but it doesn't matter because the tweet's a banger. He said,
and I know
which one are we on?
bangers.
He said the best poker players in the world aren't lost in the dogma of any one poker religion, i.e. GTO, exploitative / feel. They are hybrids with a deep fundamental understanding of the game and adjust to every situation independently.
Yeah.
I didn't even see this one.
He followed it up and he said, if they keep finding ways to win and you continue to point fingers at what they are doing wrong, you may be the one missing something. You take the person making all the correct plays, I'll take the person who just wins.
Ironically,
I
Davies wins the
I love
Super
it.
That's a
Bowl.
fucking banger
I love
tweet.
everything about that. It's so true.
Yeah.
In that thread, somebody followed up and he said, if you took the top 10 poker players, say no limit hold'em MTTs, what percentage are making the quote unquote correct play, assuming quote unquote correct equals solver approved? And Jason said, all of the best players are very accurate at solving for what the optimal strategy is versus their opponents in each hand. It's one giant node locking experiment. Studying optimal poker is extremely important because you need a baseline and fundamental understanding of how things work at equilibrium. So that's really the statement that I want to pull apart because I think it's the one that people grossly misunderstand the most. The question is actually very valid. If you took the top 10, how close to the machine would they be operating? And I think the presumption is extremely. I think the presumption amongst the community is that, like, if you look at Ike, if you look at Mikita, if you look at Jason, if you look at who else would be
Brewer?
like Bonomo, Brewer, whoever, their strategies would be so closely replicated to the machine that you'd almost not be able to tell them apart.
Also, it would be very, very close to each other, right? So, like, I think
these are all the presumptions. I think that those are both inaccurate statements.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's what Jason's alluding to.
I don't think that like they're gonna play exactly like the machine, but I think they're all like the same amount of percentage close to the machine.
I
like,
think,
like, you know what I mean? And it's the guys that can, like you said, node lock in real time and adjust on the fly that separates the 1 from 10.
But I think I think variance is actually what's separating 1 from 10 mostly.
That's true too.
Because the sample,
especially when they're playing live,
right?
Live.
The sample is
MTTs,
incredibly small, and these guys are probably all good at different things.
Yeah.
I think that if you looked at like the absolute most common nodes, then yes, you would see something that replicates the machine.
Like button, big line, single raise, pot 30
for chips.
Yeah.
I think that in that instance, you're going to see something that closely represents the machine, right? But I think if you looked at the aggregate strategies and you were able to dig into the nuance, you would see a wide difference between these 10, all doing things very much in the way that like lean into their strengths or attack their opponent's weaknesses. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's what Jason's actually alluding to, is that not that the 10 best players in the world directly mimic the machine, but that the 10 best players in the world have a fair comprehension of what the machine would do in all of these spots, and then they change that strategy or adjust accordingly to whoever their opponent is or whatever the phase of the event is. Basically they make the natural, necessary adjustments in game that are called to be made.
Yeah.
which take a lot of work off of the felt.
A lot
as well,
of work,
because you have
a lot
to
of
start,
experience.
You just have to start thinking like, okay, in this blind versus blind spot, when I limp, the big blind's supposed to ISO, call it half the time. Like, well, what if I think he's only ISOing 25% of the time, or he's ISOing too much, right? Then you have to start coming up with ways to run these spots and lock them to look at what your counter should be.
And
but
you also have to like know what that counter strategy is, but then you also have to be accurate in your assumptions.
Yeah,
right?
so
which is
I think
a whole nother
there's
problem.
also a lot of live game experience you need for this. Like,
I think it's more of that.
yeah, so that's where I'm going. I think it's way more of that than off the work, because off the table felt work, whatever.
Right.
I think it's like extraordinary amount more.
I
Because just like,
I think it's that, and sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but
because you'll finish my thought.
right. to elaborate on that, I think
Finish Conrad's thought.
well, he's fumbling the bag a bit. He made a good point. Let me pull it out of you now.
The fuck? You ruined it.
I think Jason's point is that And this was to Ike's point too from the most recent podcast from GTO Lab, that the guys who were already winning before the solver have an innate ability to freestyle that a lot of the guys who are just learned through the solver haven't really honed in on yet. And the difference now becomes that those guys who were winning pre-solver aren't slaves to the output. So this response to me indicates that like the 10 best players in the world don't even want to replicate the machine in all the spots, especially the most nuanced spots, right? Whereas if you take the 10 best players under the age of 28, maybe they all look very close to the machine, but are giving a lot up to these other players, right? Because they're just leaving a lot of win rate on the table where people are making grave errors.
What say you, Landon?
It's a weird in between where there's definitely like truth to that, but at the same time, in the smaller, high stakes field environments, it's a lot more experience driven and playing with the same people, you know, like you see a few showdowns and like come up with your own conclusions. And at the same time, when you're playing against, call it like one of these top 10, you're not really trying to get a read on them, you know, like what is someone that's like 25, 26, like that's learned the game through the machine, gonna now like go off of that and say, oh, like I don't think that Seth Davies is playing perfect in this spot. You know, like you're the one that's going to get hurt in that instance more than others. But you have to adjust to your opponent because you're not playing against Seth in every hand. You're playing against other like sometimes recreational players in hands or multi-way
I also
spots
think that makes it a bit
different.
of a privileged take from Jason because he is one of those 10 best players. So he can say Seth is not playing perfect in every spot. Not just Seth, but also himself. Like he can reflect and say, like, I know I don't play every spot perfectly.
As one of these people, this is how I approach the game.
Correct. So it's like if he can say, like, I'm in a very small privileged group that's better than the field. And I know that myself and everybody else in this small privileged group are making errors. On top of that, I know that the rest of the field who we have edge over are making even bigger errors. Yeah. So I'm not really interested any longer in what optimal is. I'm only interested in, let me rephrase. I'm not interested any longer in what optimal is as we approach equilibrium. I'm much more interested in what's optimal practically versus humans that are making a litany of errors that I think I have some sort of knowledge over.
I guess the way I sort of see this is I'm sure like he and his group like will still play the trainer, you know, and like look at a bunch of spots and say, okay, oh wow, like Theory found this check raise, that's interesting. Like, do I think this is happening in my environment? Because if it's not, you can start trying to find parts in people's games where they're weak. Like, they're not finding these check raises. They're not finding these 3x pot jams and check lines or whatever. So when you have that information of the baseline, you can then use your experience of playing poker for so long against the best in the world and say, these guys aren't doing this at this point, or my opponent on the average isn't doing this. I now know how to take advantage of that because I see what the baseline is.
I think that's true. And I think even taking that a step further, rather than like actively spending a lot of time in discovery, which I'm sure that you're right. I'm sure they do a fair amount of that because you just have to, right? There's endless things for us to discover about this game.
Like it's fun to be curious about this stuff.
Yeah, but I think, and I'm pulling from like what Ike was speaking to in the pod, I imagine it's less of playing the trainer and a lot more of, I had an interesting spot, let me look it up. Kind of thing, and then discovering things that way. But the bigger point that I'm trying to make is that they're not bounded by seeing things as black and white or binary zeros and ones. When something occurs in game, they are humble enough by the game itself to recognize that they don't have all the answers, and they respect their opponents enough to start with the question of, is that an error, or did he find something I'm unaware of? And that's what drives the curiosity, right? So rather than seeing everything as a signal as being bad, when somebody chooses a size that isn't what they believe to be prefixed as optimal, rather than just immediately saying like, oh, that's a signal that he's bad and unstudied, maybe they say like, oh, maybe he studies a different sizing scheme than me, right? And that uncovers some sort of edge. There's a ton of edge to be found when you stop blinding yourself with the single-handed way of beating the game, which is whatever I think the sim outputs.
I think to a degree, it's not just like about the sizing, like, oh, maybe they study differently. But if you know what the baseline size is supposed to be in a bunch of spots, they're good enough and smart enough to be able to think about how the other person sees the game for the size they chose.
Yeah,
you know,
I think that's
the
a good
size error isn't just like, oh, that's bad. It's like, this is bad because it doesn't push equity enough, which means they're probably betting these subsets of hands in this range. How do I take advantage of that? And that's stuff you have to do with some deep work.
That second part, how do I take advantage of that, is I think the most critical one, because I think another trap people fall into is they'll see something that they deem to be an error and they assume that they just inherently will capitalize.
Right. I just get to win money because they did something wrong.
And that's largely not going to be the case, especially in a non-chip EV environment. In an ICM environment, like, it's wild the corrections that you have to make. Oftentimes, like, if somebody's too loose, you actually have to be tighter because they're harming your EV. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to arrive at is understanding, like you said, that this may unlock a bit of the way that somebody thinks about the game, and it will expose their imbalance, right? It's not that the mechanic is the error, right? It's the flawed thought that leads to some sort of imbalance and over bluff and under bluff, that type of thing. And now what you have to start to compartmentalize as the person responding is, how does that affect my fringe hands, right? Because the top is never going to really have to adjust much.
If you just get cooler, you get cooler.
Right. And you know, you can't force them to do things with a wider portion of their range just because you have the top, type of thing. But as you start to, as you go down the gradient into the middle and bottom of your range, the hands that begin to mix, it'll have a very strong impact.
You make money in those spots more
you
than...
start to make money in spots that otherwise you shouldn't.
If you're able to, like, identify the mistake.
Exactly.
Where it's like, they're supposed to bet bigger and not that often, but he's probably betting small and
For range,
often.
yeah.
So now I need to raise more.
Exactly.
Now I need to
Or at
check
least-
call and float more and then lead
Exactly.
turns. Like, they just find different ways to take advantage of something that they know is a mistake because they know the baseline strategy so well.
Precisely. And I think that is... that's the beauty and the art of No Limit Hold'em, right? Is having a calculated freestyle switch that you can just turn on at any point in time. I think that's what really qualifies elite talent whenever we're talking about this game. And I think for a long time, it's been very misguided and marketed as, no, the most elite player in the game is the one who can most closely replicate the sim. That may only be true in one specific format, which is No Limit Heads Up. And I'm not even positive that that's true there.
Just because it's the most solvable.
Yes. Well, it's whether it's the most solvable or not, I think might be up for debate, but we have the highest degree of confidence in the accuracy of the sims.
Yeah.
Right? Like, in
The
that,
variables are much less.
Like,
we can
there's-
fix things.
There's
Yeah.
nobody that's trying to, like, get public action on, hey, I'm going to play the trainer at single raise pots for 100 big blinds. I'm going to bet on myself versus them to win money over 100,000 hands.
Right.
Because if that was the case, they would be doing it.
Right.
So Doug is not actually a good poker player. He's just good at memorization.
No, it's actually quite the opposite. Like, all the things that I hate about Doug, the way he thinks about the game, I think,
of course,
is actually it actually falls very much in line to all of this. I actually think, to some degree, I don't know how accurate this is because I don't know how much heads up action he's been getting lately or what his results are, but I would imagine, because he went from creating this framework of how heads up works pre-solver and really breaking things down, understanding all the different nodes, and, like, basically he was able to formulate a strategy and a way of thinking about the game that kind of replicated the algorithm to a heads up solve. And then the solve got introduced to him. And I wonder how much of it impacted him similar to the way Galfon was impacted during the heads up challenge, where it's like you fall too deeply into the nuance that doesn't really matter because your opponent also isn't skilled in these areas. And you kind of just forget the original framework that you're operating off of that just made you a beast.
Yeah, I mean, Doug was just very open when he was, like, losing halfway through to Daniel. It was like, yeah, this is just variance. I know what I'm doing. I'm studying all these things. I know he's making mistakes. I'm just going to play good poker. And then he came back and won a bunch of money.
Right. But I've also heard him say similar things translating into, like, 6 max and 8 max and stream games and stuff like that. And I don't think that that's the right approach.
It's different in the sense of, I think this guy's playing differently. I need to figure out how to actually make money here.
Right. Like, I don't like the I'm going to leave it up to chance type of mentality versus LFG Hank or whatever when he check jams river and you have 2 aces, right? It's like, I don't like the whole notion of like, you know what, I'm just going to play good poker and then I'm going to randomize these spots for what they're supposed to be. It's like, that's fine. You'll do just fine. But you're a better poker player than that.
Is there a better approach
You
than
can
fine?
absolutely do better than fine in these spots because you're in soft games. These people are predictable in some sort of capacity that is able to be figured out by somebody who's sharp. And it almost feels a little bit lazy to just say, like, I don't want to have any mechanical flaws.
I think that's sort of the big back and forth, though, is some people are okay with not trying to play that game and win money.
Right.
And then other people are trying to play that game and win or lose more money in the short term because of it. You know, like there's something to be said about like making the right decision in the moment.
Yeah.
And some people are just like, you know what, I don't know any better. I think this is a mix and I'm just going to mix for it. And then others are on the side of, I think I have good speculation to believe in one way over the other.
I'm just of the mind that anybody who's very talented playing in soft lineups does inherently know better. They may not know with 100% confidence, but they know with a higher degree of confidence than just randomly mixing. And I'm not even just talking about like whether or not to call with aces there, right? It's like whether or not to rifle off a 5-high bluff in a spot where you just have a really strong sense that your opponent is now backed into a spot of never having folds.
Right. And that's worth more than the baseline in the sense of if you know the baseline, they're supposed to call second pair, but in this spot, when you bet big, they fold second pair too much. Now they're left with top pair only. How does that change your range and your overall strategy?
It's a really difficult thing to work backwards because if you're not already thinking about that on the turn when you go for the big bet, now once you've already made the big bet and you land on the river and you start to think about it, you have to be able to abort, right? But if you're thinking about it on the turn, now you can custom size, right, in order to ensure that that target remains so that you can run the normal river line that you planned on running to begin with.
Or you just take the EV by betting on the turn,
betting
and
the strategy,
river.
yeah, exactly, and giving up 5-high. Or maybe you don't put 5-high in this line any longer, right? There's a million different ways that you get to adjust when you have a fair estimation of what the response will be. And again, you don't need to be 100% accurate, right? Like you just want to be more accurate than the EV loss of the mix.
It's kind of man, that is really true. I just think that nowadays, for sure, like call it whatever, I was coming up playing online cash like before I moved out here, and you and I got into a bunch of fights about like just do what the machine says. The machine is good, you're gonna win money. Where now people are kind of back on the side of bet on yourself if you've done the work.
I gotta tell you, man, it feels good to have just like dug my fucking heels in and stayed like unwavering throughout all of this of like, look, I appreciate what you're doing. I respect your hustle and the fact that you are learning a lot.
I wasn't familiar with your game.
Right. But like, I'm going to sit here and when this guy blasts off, I'm going to be ready, you know, and vice versa. Like when I'm blasting off, I'm going to ensure that I position myself with the greatest success rate, even if it means choosing candidates that in theory aren't practically supposed to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just a matter of, it's weird, like with especially with tournaments, you know, because there's such high variance and you win or lose a flip with reg open.
Right.
Might be the difference between you winning the tournament or being in for 3.
Yeah. And how could you ever know?
And yeah, you just don't know the wiser.
Right. Yep.
So there's like that weird in between of trying to figure out where you're making money in the pots that you do get to see showdowns or you do get to have actual decisions where it's like, like, can I check jam the turn here? Do I think he's bluffing enough? Or can I bluff catch the river? Do I think he's bluffing enough? And looking at those and being like, okay, how far was I from the baseline and how accurate was my assumption in the moment?
For me personally, like I think the greatest skill set that a live player can develop is hand planning, and I think that that's where the person who is much more versed in the sim kind of looks and scoffs. Because if you're very well versed in theory and you understand what baseline is, the hands are planned for you, right? It's just about developing the frequencies and making sure that you adhere to them. But in the live realm, if you're going to be deviating a bunch, then you want to be able to plan the hand from flop to river, right? And that's where this notion of, okay, well, it takes a lot of brain power and thought and mindfulness in game to actually do this type of stuff. But it becomes second nature if you do it routinely, and you do start to batch a lot of it where it's like, okay, well, this spot looks like that spot, and this player is like that player. So
you're
I
never
can
gonna have all the answers.
Exactly. So when you're able to hand plan, you can start with a default like, okay, well, I range bet this board for quarter. And while you're doing that, rather than just blindly doing it, start with the premise of like, but on these turns, I start to polarize. And if I start to polarize, his response will be tight. Like, it'll be too tight. I know that it'll be too tight. So if it's too tight, what hands do I want to justify bluffing with, right? And now all of a sudden, maybe your bluffs reshift. Maybe it is a front door flush draw all of a sudden where that's like theoretically a no-no. But those front door flush draws like unblock certain aspects of his call fold range or whatever, but like you just want to reframe in a way that is now conditioned to the opponent that you're trying to exploit. Otherwise, blanketly just doing what the sim says is great because the hand is planned out for you.
Well, that's like the, call it early 20s, mid 20s guys now, where it's like, I've played a bajillion hands against the solver, turn size is 40 or check.
Right. And unfortunately for them, in the short term, they get fucking wrecked by like shit regs in these games.
Where
because
it's like, they checked raise me, they should have these hands, but they don't.
Well, it's not specific to the mechanics. I mean, yes, that's part of it, but it's mostly specific to the depth. They just oftentimes come in with a bit of hubris where it's like, well, if this works at 200 big blinds, this will work at 500 big blinds as well. And they don't recognize the risk aversion that the majority of shit regs will have.
I'm sure. Okay, you're talking about cash.
Yeah. I can't speak to tournaments, man. It's just so shallow, and it's.
Well, it's the same idea, right? When it comes to SPR and putting bets in, where like top of range might not be top of range anymore based on the actions and the sizes.
Right, but like when SPRs are low, how big of an error can you make? If you go broke with a top pair type of hand and an SPR of 2. Like, that sucks. And
that's
maybe
no limit, baby.
Maybe you can get a little better at it in the future, but like, how much can you actually
maybe you can get away,
Like, what kind of game are we playing here? That doesn't interest me at all. And even though Jason's mostly an MTT guy, I think his statement more applies to chip EV spots than it does ICM. I'm sure there's a lot of exploitation that takes place in ICM as well, but it's so much more unique than anything we're speaking to. It's not just going to be your casual overfold or over bluff spot type of stuff. All right, let's wrap today with a quick in the muck.
Insubordinate.
All right, so this in the muck is a hand that I played. I don't know if I want to out him or not. It's fine. I won't. So this was a heads up hand that I played on an app, 150-300 with a 300 ante, so big blind ante. In this particular hand, we were 250 big blinds effective to start, so 75K. And it's a single raise pot. I don't know why I'm seat 1 here out of position, but I am. So I have King 4 of clubs, single raise pot. He opens 3x, I call. King 4-5, King 4 of diamonds. I check. He bets 40%, 900 into 2K. I just 7, call. 8. Yeah. So he's black 7-8. Well, not that that's important now. Let's just spoiler it. So King 4-5, 2 diamonds, 1 heart. I check call 40%. Turn ace of spades. Now this is a very advantageous card for him. So we should expect big betting to come through here. Something like pot, maybe even more. At an SPR here of like 17. Pot feels about right because like you can't really play for stacks just yet. I don't think, not through like
you can't.
Not geosizing. It's so big. You would have to be going like 3x pot. Viable, but I doubt that it's probable. So he goes half pot, which feels like an error. And I've played a lot of hours with this guy, so when I see these mergy sizings, I think that that's exactly what they are. I think that they're like cheap bluffs often. I think that they're
weak value,
like a king, like a naked king here,
like an ace bad kicker, like ace 6 off.
Correct. Yeah, things that like have to bet twice, but just want to check back on river.
It's like I want to get money in. I don't want him to be able to put a big bet in on me.
Right.
I'm going to bet small. And if he calls, check back win.
Exactly.
Or if I improve bet.
Exactly. So on a turn ace, I think I would have often check called twice. I would mix. Let's put it that way.
I think this size forces you to check call if he goes bigger.
Agreed.
You know,
I think if he goes pot, like I check call
overbet,
it,
like
or
150.
even overbet, yeah, I check call at a much higher frequency. But versus this size, I think I just have to play pure check raise with my hand, which on the flop, I'm pretty confident is a pure check call. I think I would play check raise with king 4 of hearts, which is bottom or top and bottom with a backdoor. But
like king 5, top 2, 4,
king 5 for sure would check raise.
4, 5, bottom
4,
2.
5 needs protection. It would for sure check raise. But king 4 is like the one that you protect your range with mostly. So now facing half pot, I think I have a mandatory check raise. I went for pot. This might be an error. We'll look at it. Landon made a pretty strong case for this being a 2E spot.
Yeah, because we're trying to say we have a really good fucking hand.
Right. And
Like
we're not trying to avoid getting
plus-
stacked from ace or like ace 4, ace 5, ace king, whatever.
Yeah, like we get
Like
stacked.
we just get stacked.
Well, that's kind of where I think, to a degree, like you're taking advantage of the size mistake
Mm-hmm.
of raising a hand that should probably call the turn
Yep.
if they chose the right one.
Right.
Where if they choose like a bigger size, or whatever, and you do play some like check raises, like small check raises, it's sets and straights.
Yeah.
Not king 4.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. So yeah, I might have missized here. We'll look at it in the whiz. Probably something closer to like 170% pot makes
Check
sense.
the whiz.
He calls, and the river is an offsuit 6,
Okay.
which by all accounts should only really complete ace 6.
There's like 7, 8 of diamonds.
Of course, 7, 8 of diamonds is in there, but like I don't
maybe
even,
it bets bigger.
I was gonna say I don't even know if it chooses that size. It feels like it has just too much equity to choose that size. It might check back some, and it might just go big.
The part just go bigger, right? Because like you're bluffing, but if you get called, you still have a lot of equity.
Right.
Like you kind of got unlucky in the sense that he had what he had. The spoiler alert. if you
I
will.
would never expect this hand to be there facing a pot-sized
That
check raise turn.
peels a raise.
Right. Right.
Like
It shouldn't be there.
they know what the river is or what?
So yeah, right. So the river is a 6 of clubs.
Deck read.
This is
Was an
where
app game.
So this is where I'm kind of in the muck, and where I didn't really plan my hand all that well, because I was very conscientious of the fact that like ace X exists and all rivers are going to complete better 2 pairs that aren't a king or a 4. So it's like I kind of already had in my head that I was going to check raise turn for pot and B40 all rivers that are not a diamond.
With your range or with your hand?
With my hand specifically. I think with range I would have 2 sizes. It would be B40 and like big, and my big size would be like my more nutted hands. If I complete a flush on the end, if I have sets, I think these would all be in the big size.
This on the screen is a correct SPR of the spot now.
Yeah.
Right, we're seeing to a
So
degree
3
an
SPR?
like an issue-ish.
Right.
When it
Which is
comes to
why your size makes a lot more
the
sense.
check raise construction.
But again, remember, my hand planning was I'm very vulnerable here to better hands. I don't think he'll jam ace 6 on the river because I still have hands that beat that. So my thought process was that he would often just like call with better because I have so many sets in range and he just doesn't. So I would just B40 river and
Figure it out.
get value versus 1 pair, save value versus 2. It might have been a poor thinking. Again, I'm in the muck here.
Right. Well, what's the plan if you B40 and he piles?
Call.
Right. So
Because the 6 just shouldn't change anything. Maybe on a different river, like a jack or a queen or a 10,
like mix.
I would
or
B40 and probably
whatever.
fold a lot. Because this completes a lot of his better 2 pairs that could maybe confidently jam. It also completes some of his gut shots that maybe don't bet fold the turn. But the 6 just seemed very nondescript. It also gives him a worse 2 pair that he may lose his mind with, like 6-5.
6-5 of diamonds.
Yeah.
Or like
But I
5x
just thought there was a lot of
diamonds.
6-7. I thought there was a lot of 6-3. I thought that there would be like
Right.
a
He
lot
has
of
hands that like he might turn into bluffs
Yeah.
because they look like they have good properties.
maybe even ace 3 or ace 7 decide like they can't win through calling, and or king 7, king 3 type of hands just decide they can't win through calling and ship it on me. So I thought like blocking here for 40 and then calling off was pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Come to find out that was not the case.
Unfortunately.
I got absolutely wrecked here, and he might just have like 1 of 1 hand when he jams river. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that he underbluffs rivers in these spots. I haven't played him enough, but
Well, the issue is like, what is the bluff now?
well, again, I think it's a lot of hands that contain a 7 or a 3. 5-7, king 7, 6-7, 4-3,
right,
5-3.
These hands now have to bet the turn for small and then call
Makes a lot of sense.
pot raise. Does it?
Yeah, they all fit that. They all fit that category
Like
of
king 7.
Yeah, it's exactly what we said it was. A marginal pair that has showdown value. Right? King X goes for 2 and then, finds a bluff whenever the straight falls.
Yeah, I mean, now we'd have to turn hands with a good
9-8.
amount of equity on the river that can beat a bluff.
Yeah, but you
Into a
understand
bluff.
you understand heads up theory incredibly well. I
just mean like you're not going to see
think he
7-4. Like you're not going to see the hands like set blocker.
I think you would.
Well, he wouldn't bet the turn with them very often.
I disagree.
Unless he's a flush draw.
I strongly disagree.
Go back to the turn. You think he's just going to bet like 7-4 of clubs on the turn for half?
I think when he has a mergy bet size, it's because he has very few checks.
But you think 7-4 would like call this raise?
Bro, he called with 8-7. I mean, I
But
guess
that's a gutter to the
8-7
nuts.
Yeah, but 7-4 is
A 4.
yeah, I don't know. 6-4 definitely would.
It probably. Why would 6-4 call? It's a 6.
Yeah, maybe.
I just mean like the hands that you'll see in like the machine are probably going to be something along the lines of like the very niche combos of like the 5 with the flush draw, or like a 3 or a 7 with the flush draw.
Well, I don't think we'll
king.
see anything in the machine because it's just not gonna want to do this.
So I just have to custom size it.
Yes, yeah, and at that point, like, sure, some hands will get forced, but I agree with you. Like,
Right, I just think bluffs are harder to find unless he's turning like legitimately like weak showdown value into bluffs, which could just win in the call node that don't always like pile on you.
right, that's where I disagree with you. I don't think most people, like, he's not a heads up player. I don't think most people understand what the threshold is for just calling and winning.
Sure.
Like, I don't think he's ever expecting me to show up with a hand worse than king 7 when I bet 40% on the river.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I think he would assume my bluffs go into a larger size.
It sounds like for you on the end, like having 5-4 is like a better catcher than unblocking the king X that he could be betting.
You mean if I bet call?
Yes, like you want him to bluff king 7, right?
Well,
King
I don't
3.
know. I don't know what 7x and 6x and hands like that he possesses, but I just assume that he has enough of them to justify bet calling.
Yeah, like 6-3.
Yeah, 6-3 for sure.
6 deuce.
6-3 should for sure be in there. 6 deuce should for sure be in there.
7-6.
4-3.
It just depends on
4 deuce.
Yeah, it just depends on his turn construction, which will change your.
Right, I'm just operating off the assumption it's too loose.
Yeah.
And it almost certainly is, because I recognize that size is just like not really meaningful. Like,
Right.
that size is like, you like custom ace 5 of diamonds for that size, because you just
Or
have
like
too much of the board.
You just have like aces, you're just like,
Aces with the ace of diamonds. You just have too much of the board, that type of thing.
Want you to do something.
But it's like, I have too much of the board, so it's hard for him to have too much of the board, so we probably just like caught him. Little did I know that the 6 was going to be bad. All right, let's see what the Wiz has to say. Obviously, I have a range check. He chooses the right size. B40 is correct. Looks like he mixes pretty much everything. I don't see any. Okay, so ace 7, which ironic, I said that might be one of his river bluffs, is supposed to be a pure check back. I can very confidently say there's no shot in hell he checks back ace 7 of diamonds.
Or just like any hand in particular, probably. It's a king high board, single raise pot.
Yeah, I could definitely see a range bet coming through here.
Like, how much does that lose? You just have to compare EVs. It might not even be that bad.
Right.
How bad can it be?
Yeah, that's fair. Let's
Maybe
see. Strategy
loses.
plus EV. It's nothing. It's literally nothing.
Yeah, sure, you can do it that way.
Yeah, it's losing 0.02. So, stone nothing.
Like if you just go to like ranges and then do the compare EV thing.
Yeah, we could do that too.
I just mean like if you go to a range, like next to it.
All right, so I'm just going to give him some ace 7 suited, because I think that's an important hand for him to have on the end. But other than that, I think I'll leave the range unchanged. He might be range betting here. He might not. Like, checking back king 8 off almost always, I would be fucking shocked.
I guess but this is sort of like, call it the experience coming into play of like, do I think that somebody checks back a king high board? Not very often.
I would say specifically him, I've played like, hundreds of hours against, like, very rarely.
Right.
Very rarely.
So your response is going to be different versus this range with bets and checks than a range bet.
Yes. Technically, yes. So So
Anyways.
if we were to play check raise, obviously it's for the large size. It looks like it goes for 3E, which is 120% pot. King 4 suited, not particularly in there. I was right. It's King 4 of hearts that it wants to choose, which is about, call it a quarter of the time, give or take.
You're just repping King 5 plus.
Oh, it's actually 18% of the time. But yeah, King 5 is a very natural check raise. 5-4 actually does not check raise at all, which I'm a little surprised by. I thought it would want to protect itself a little bit.
It's just the size and the board gets scary too much.
I guess it's because, 5-4 suited specifically never has diamonds in it, and that's a big problem. But like 5-4 off with a diamond is check raising at some frequency. So I think that makes fair sense, right? Because like if you're even against just like 5x of diamonds, you're not doing all that well with bottom two. You're pretty subject to runouts. So we do play just call here. So far so good. Turn ace of spades. Again, I don't think we'll have any leads.
It'd be strong to find a lead here.
Yeah. Okay, 0%. And yeah, so the preferred size here, 100%. Let's add in half pot and see if it ever deviates or split sizes here for these two.
With like aces. It's probably just going to check back.
Ace is mostly checking back.
Yeah, that's too much.
Yeah, maybe it adds it in here for the half pot if we let it merge.
It just doesn't like half.
It just doesn't like it. Okay, so let's eliminate the big size and see what does go for half. So he's betting about 37% of range for full pot. It's probably going to be double that for half. Yeah, maybe around there. Oh, no, barely increases. It just increases all the value hands. Now kings like fully bets, aces nearly fully bet. All the king X bets a lot. So you look at his actual candidate, 8-7 off. That bets in full. 7-6, that bets in full. So yeah, like, you know, like I was saying, like the 5-3, the 6-3, the 7-3, these are all betting in full. 5-4, 4-3, these are all betting in full. Obviously 3 deuce is a straight, so of course that's going to bet. 6 deuce, his 7 deuce suited. A lot of these hands. Now you were right that like the 7-5 suited, not really in there. But like the 7-6, 8-7s, these now get in there a lot. The 8-6s, these are all hands that could potentially be
8-6
bluffs
is
on
a
the
flush
end.
draw for what it's worth, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I would suspect he just bets them all for this size.
Sure. I just think that they don't all peel versus check raise.
Right, but like the king X is heavy on the bet. Obviously, his ace X heavy on the bet.
Yeah, you didn't check raise, so you mostly have a 5 and a 4, or
Right.
like a 5 plus equity, like 5 deuce, 4-3.
Yeah, and we let him
deuce.
size down now. Okay, so we actually raised this very infrequently, which was not my instinct. Well, maybe it was my instinct because I wanted to have king 4 to raise. You know, like I wasn't sitting here saying like, man, if I had king queen, I'd fucking juice this one up. So maybe this actually does kind of instinctually hit the mark.
Yeah, you don't raise very often.
Issue being the king 4 not in, which kind of surprises me because king 4 and 5-4 are like the two big delays that we have.
You're just repping a straight or like ace 5.
Yeah, well, king 5 gets in there.
Well, that mostly check raise flop.
Right, but
like it's not real.
Yeah, well, I mean it's there.
Okay.
Let's. Oh, but it did choose my size for what it's worth. So we got that part right. That's nice. Not in the muck just yet.
Yeah.
Not in the muck just yet. Okay, so I'm actually surprised. I agreed with you. I thought.
You mean check raising a hand that's a 0%er though?
Oh, relax. What do you think the EV difference is going to be?
Hey man, last time I did this and check raising a hand that was a 0%er, I got the X.
I got the axe.
Guapo loved it.
All right,
Guapo loved it.
I insubordinated to the wizard.
let's go half the time here. Raise. Whoops. Why are we're never folding? Come on.
You did it.
Yeah,
Just
but
click the button.
but I was lying. It's gonna be way more than half. Who am I kidding? I was so pumped to have king 4.
Yeah, the issue to a degree is this card is still really good for his like mergey middle value.
Yeah.
That your 2 pair still gets counterfeit on the end.
Yes, that part's very true.
Like a 5 is bad, a 4 is bad if you had king 5 or whatever.
Yeah, and there is a bit of an EV difference here. We're losing about a big blind in what I guess is about a 30 big blind pot. Well, I guess it counts the raise, so about a 60 big blind pot. So you know,
You've done worse.
Yeah, but you know, we're losing 12% pot share. That's
What? 12.
one big blind out of 60.
That's 12%?
No. Apologies.
Math on air, man.
God damn it.
It's like 1.8%.
1.
Spell pony.
1.5. Yeah.
Spell pony.
Okay.
Spell pony.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Did you see what it did? It took out the king fives. By adding the king 4, it just took out the king 5.
You have to protect your range on
Yeah.
a king and have good hands.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we're choosing king 4 because we don't have the king 5 anyway.
Yeah.
That seems fine.
This is kind of what I mean, though, when you look at his range that continues versus the range.
Right.
There's no 8-7. There's no straight.
Well, there's 8-7 of diamonds.
Okay.
There's 8-6 of diamonds. Right. The hands that we
There's
expected
combo
there to
draws.
be. Yeah, the hands that we expected there to be. I think the fix here, though, because we can make some pretty clear.
Like ace-x is indifferent for him on turn. Like ace-6 is not great. Ace-7
Right. Like
is not.
these hands are quite literally never folding. I am very, very confident in it. So like these hands that mix, I just don't think he's never folding 4-3.
Double gutter. Yeah.
Just never. It's not going to be a thing. These hands are all going to be in there 5-3. Maybe not. I'll give him the 6-4 fold, I guess. But 8-6 is in, 8-7 is in. They're both drawing to the nuts. 8-7 suited's in. 9-7's not drawing to anything, right?
I
Okay.
mean, to a degree, like this is why you don't want to check raise very much, as you get these hands that are bluffing with not that much equity to fold.
Right.
But if they're calling, you're probably going to check raise more.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, all this King X is just pure folding.
Right.
There's just no way. Like, I gotta give him.
Someone said this, the other one didn't.
Wait, what?
I said this, and you're like, nah.
That would pure fold?
No, not that a pure fold, but like they're not in a spot to just like auto put in money versus a huge check raise.
But what I'm saying is that he would. I don't care what the solver would do. I know that you're obviously you're correct that they would give up because they're not supposed to bet this size to begin with.
I mean, this is more so when it comes to like when like the note of when he jams over your bet. What does that range look like?
On river.
Yes.
Correct. And I'm saying that I very confidently can state that he's calling with hands that are supposed to fold the turn. So when you say King 7 is not there, I'm saying I disagree.
Right.
So yes, you can play the voice of the solver all you want, but the guy showed up with 8-7 off, no diamond. So I'm very confident in my decision.
But he's saying
I'm saying that hand might just call you on the end versus
Right.
pile.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
And
we'll
you're
I guess we'll
saying-
find
He's saying,
out.
yeah, it could exist
but
on a turn,
what
but
do you care about
doesn't
this
exist
for?
on the river.
You
What
know,
do you mean?
like to a degree, like the solver's not that it's not important here, but like this is a different range than the machine as a whole, right? We're just like guessing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's nice to know like what the final output actually is, though.
I would imagine that a king is probably just gonna. It might like do some sneak mixing. Like,
Oh wow, it's only giving me jam or check.
yeah.
Well, I guess I only gave it a single size. That was my mistake. I should have ran this for multiple sizes on the river.
Just-
Yeah, let's do like that, maybe 125, and then rerun it. Okay, so yeah, we were right. It's block and jam, and King 4 fits in the check/block category for the most part, as does Ace 5. Okay, so not mucky yet, not mucky yet. Let's see where he starts pulling from. Okay, so it's like the 7-3-6-3s as we kind of suspected. I don't know if he even has 4s,
A set.
but maybe.
What do you mean?
Well, I just don't know that he would choose that turn size, but maybe.
Right.
So we'll give it to him. Obviously, 8-7s all got there. It's interesting that 8-6 doesn't choose to bluff. Or 7. I mean, 7-6 does a little bit, right?
I mean, it blocks your bluffs.
Right.
You're piling when you have a 7.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah. So
mixing
I
it
suspect
blocks
that we
that.
just have like a fold now versus this jam. Almost definitely. Mixes. We just don't have that many hands, I guess.
Yeah,
And
you have to.
it does prefer the club.
I mean, your range is that B goes B40 is 2 pair.
Right.
Like a straight few is mostly just going to pile, so you're not going to have 3 deuce.
Correct.
speak.
Yeah.
So now you like the machine knows your range is this,
Mhm.
so it's forcing you to be indifferent with this.
Right, but it doesn't lose. Is my point. It would be different if it was like it's basically breaking even. It's making 0.9 big blinds.
Well, it'll be 0 because it's
yes,
it's 50,
correct.
It's not actually winning that.
Right. It would solve down to 0. My point is there are instances where like you can fuck a range so badly that your calls are actually losing money. It's just trying to have calls.
Meet MDF.
You know, not even meet MDF, just like have some calls at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the river is very debatable, like whether or not I can call this jam. But to be fair, I thought he would have hands. Yeah, it's weird because I thought that he would have hands that interact with the 6, but I thought they all had to be diamonds.
Can I finish your thought for you?
Please. You enjoyed that, didn't you?
I did a little bit.
Yeah, like on the river, I disqualify 8-7 outside of 8-7 of diamonds.
Yeah, you
right
probably should.
But I did the same thing with the bluffs. So like the 6Xs, I thought all had to be diamonds. So I thought like the 6 of spades is a good river for that reason, because now all of his bluffs are still intact. So 6-7 of diamonds, 6-3 of diamonds.
But it doesn't matter that much.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So probably a bit of an error on the end.
I mean, it's weird.
It's nice to see that the logic though behind the check raise pot bet block on river was kind of validated.
Yeah, that's nice.
Even though like it just wants to check instead, I guess.
Or you're mostly playing call out of position here, even when he chooses that size.
Right.
You're check raising 2% of the time. And it's mostly just better hands than king 4. And it's sort of, I would imagine it's because the SPR is so deep that your hand simply runs into the blade when you go for like the insane check raise size.
Which I kind of felt, right? Like if I go too big here, then I do start putting pressure on hands that I want to continue. But he always calls his ace X, and now I'm left blind on the river. Or, like I'm kind of just jamming into a 2-pair plus range.
Or he calls you with flush draws, right? That like have sick equity.
Right, also
and
bad.
Then if they come in, your hand performs very poorly as a bluff catch.
Yeah.
And if a river's whatever, and then you check and he piles, it's hard for you to bluff catch even then.
Yeah. Even as played, you can see if I choose to check river instead, and I face a pot size bet, my hand just makes
sort of a good reason to say how OP it is to play in position when you're playing super deep.
Massive.
Yeah.
Position and depth is.
But that's why your flop shot is like check raise polar, like make the SPR decrease as fast as possible with your nutted hands like sets.
Right.
And
the most theoretical line we saw here is me check calling 3 times with king 4.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because like especially for me who's known to give a ton of action, I take those lines on occasion against certain opponents, and when I show up with king 4 on the end, it's always like, who hurt you? Like are you sick? What's the matter? How did you miss 3 different check raises in this spot? It's like, well, it's a really good hand, but like not when called, that kind of thing. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. We covered a lot of things today.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, click the bell so you know that when we're live. Very likely we stay in this time slot for the rest of the week as we have games at the Bellagio this week. Small chance we move into the after dark hours one day this week. And then maybe a big surprise coming up next week. We will see. I might be on the road, boys. That's going to do it for us today. Stay tuned for time tomorrow. Most likely going to be 11 a.m. Tune in then. We'll see you guys all tomorrow.
Later, squad.
Peace.